What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Noah. Today we'll be going over episode 2 of our spring series of what lures I'll be throwing. Today's episode will be revolving around my medium heavy setup and everything that I'll be throwing on that. So let's get started. So again, I don't know if I said it in the first video where we talked about finesse and stuff. These are I'm making these videos to go over my personal preferences. This is not a professional opinion. It's just things that I know actually work. I'm not just saying it just because I watch other people talk about it. I'm simply putting this information out there based on what I have actually personally experienced. So I guess we'll just go over the rod. The rod that I'm using today, not the one that you need to get. The one that I'm using is a 7.6 medium heavy glass rod. This is a Shimano Zodius. Paired up with a Shimano Sitica. This is a 200 size, 200D. And then for line, I got 12-pound fluoro. So the rod and reel, very good. I guess why I went with 12-pound. I feel like it's a good in-between for a light line, but you can also, like, it's not too light of a line where you gotta be scared of, like, losing expensive baits. I mostly chose 12-pound because I'm not doing any, I'm not putting the line under much pressure, if that makes sense. Like, most of the time, it's gonna be like me using moving baits. If I was doing more jig fishing with like half ounce or ounce size jigs, I feel like 12-pound line would be too little, and you would frequently break your line. But since I'm using um, lighter line or baits that I'm not jigging, I guess, and they're already moving is the main reason why I'm going with 12-pound line. I hope that makes sense. So I'll go over the lures that I like to throw on this medium heavy glass rod. You guys saw the video I posted a while back. This is what I was killing them on. This is a square bill crankbait. We'll just keep it simple. Square bill crankbait. This is a silent version actually, which is good because in most pressure situations where, you know, a lot of fishermen come every day, a lot of their baits have like rattles and stuff. So if you just by throwing something different, throwing a slightly smaller crankbait that also doesn't have rattle can definitely increase your bite percentage. And we had a good day when we went out, so I would say it works. Color wise, for springtime, I like white. Not white. This is red and black. This is like a craw color. Um, let's see. I don't have it on the table right now, but just imagine this crankbait in this color, sexy shad. It's money in clear water. So yeah, there's that. I guess we can go over this. Locations as to where I would throw this. I know this crankbait dives to about 3 feet, which is another reason why I feel like having a lighter line is useful for crankbaits. If you use too thick of a line, it can inhibit how deep your lure goes. So maybe you don't want your crankbait to go so deep, then maybe thicker line would be good. But I feel like for this situation with a smaller lure and I want to get down deeper, I feel like a lighter line, like 12-pound, maybe even, I could even step down a little lighter, but that's besides the point. Yeah, smaller lure and I want to get down a decent depth, 12-pound is what I personally use and haven't had any issues. Next lures, rattle traps, lipless crankbaits, flat crankbaits, whatever you want to call them. These things are killer. You can fish these basically 2 ways. One way is by just throwing it out and reeling it, keeping your rod tip kind of up, and you just reel it like that. Or what a lot of people do, like especially in the wintertime, is they'll jig their lipless cranks. What it'll look like, I can't really do it because I got such a long rod. But what you'll do is you'll bring the rod up, like up, and you'll feel it vibrate, and then you let it fall, and you reel up the slack, bring up your rod all the way, feel it vibrate, and let it fall. And usually when it's on the fall, when you see your, when you finish jigging it up, when you bring it down, that's when they grab it. So you'll usually know you have one because when you go to lift up again and you lift up, that fish is on there, you lift up and you just give them a quick jab, bring them in. I've caught my biggest fish actually using a lipless crank. That was a long time ago. But yeah, definitely highly recommend using a lipless crank in the spring. Colors wise, this is Sexy Shad, so it's like a white blue color. I would use this in clear water, and then red you can use in stain to muddy water. That's just me personally, but you can experiment. I mean, I'm not saying you can't get bit using either color in either situation, but that's just what I use personally. Next bait. This is a blade bait. So that's a weird looking bait, but so it's basically it's similar to a lipless crank, besides the fact that the only way that I fish it is by doing that jigging retrieve where you bring it up with a rod tip, let it fall, bring it up, and usually this is for I would say cold water situations. So this will I probably won't use this as much, but I know there's plenty of nights here in the DMV where it'll be like 20 degrees at night and then like 50 degrees in the morning, or 50 degrees like hottest part of the day. So if you ever go out there fishing during a cold front, if I ever went out, I would throw this instead of a lipless crank. So that is that. As we get those warm weeks where like it's like 60-degree weather the whole week and stuff, I will start throwing mini glide baits or mini swim baits. These aren't glide baits. Those are glide bait. I'll be throwing mini swim baits on the medium heavy. Yeah, I mean, this is a baby bullshed, and then Spro BBZ1. So these are all jointed swim baits. These you just kind of chuck and throw. And this is River to Sea S flavors. I think this is the 120, the really small one. I've caught fish on all of them. Springtime is definitely a good time to use a lot of like reaction baits, like moving baits where you chuck and wind. Definitely use them on the warmer days. Don't go out there when it's like 30-40 degree weather and think you're gonna fish these real fast and catch something. That's usually not how it's gonna go. But yeah, throw these on the medium heavy and catch a bunch of fish when the weather's warm. Another bait that I'll throw on my medium heavy are jerk baits. These are the Vision 110s, and this is a 110 Junior. But the jerk baits, I feel like the 12-pound line, you definitely want a slightly light line in order to fish these properly. Because for jerk baits, you want them to actually jerk, like jerk. If you use too thick of a line, you'll end up pulling the jerk bait. So when you jerk the rod, you'll pull and then jerk. But if you use a lighter line, you usually get a lot more snappier of movement instead of like you're pulling the bait. That makes sense. So yeah, that's another plus to using slightly lighter line. The sizing wise, the larger one will go a little bit deeper and the little one will go a little bit more shallow. But I feel like the lighter one will definitely get you more bites. But I don't know. I feel like the profile, it'll just get you more bites. You'll get big fish and small fish. Small ones will still hit this thing too, but You'll definitely have a better chance, in my opinion, catching a big one if you use a larger profile. And lastly, so those were all the baits that I would recommend. I don't know if you noticed, but all of them were treble hook baits. That's just um that's what I would recommend for at least my medium heavy because it's a glass rod. I know most people who are just getting into bass fishing, if a lot of the videos will tell you online, if you can only get one casting rod, get a medium heavy. The that's up for personal preference, I guess. So I'm just gonna throw a couple baits in that I feel like you can get away with throwing on a medium heavy. Um, but I'll say all of these baits I would prefer to throw on a heavy. But I'm just trying to give you guys ideas as to what other baits you can also use instead of just throwing only treble hook baits. First up, the Chatterbait. You guys don't know already, this is somewhat similar to a spinnerbait, but I feel like just the way the Chatterbait fishes, I would rather use a Chatterbait instead of a spinnerbait on a medium heavy rod because I feel like it doesn't have as much drag, I guess. Um, at least for the spinnerbait with the, two blades, if a fish bites and you go to set the hook, I feel like the rod is too bendy and you won't get as good of a hook set compared to using a chatterbait. So that's just personal preference. How you would fish this, you would use this cold, warm weather, doesn't matter. The speed at which you retrieve it would be dependent upon how hot or cold the water is. So colder water, go slow. Warmer water, you can go a little bit faster. Color-wise, black and blue for muddy water, and then for clear water, you can go for like a green pumpkin, a red, or even a white too. Those will work. For chatterbaits, just make sure you add a trailer. When you buy them from the store, they only come with the chatterbait and they don't come with like a soft plastic on the back, usually. So what I have here is like a little twin tail something, but you can also add like those little Kitex or the little Swimbaits. Those also work really well for trailers or flukes too. So around this time in the spring, I would recommend either a fluke or a twin tail instead of a swimbait. Again, not a professional opinion, just my personal preference. A jig for medium heavy. I try and find jigs that have hooks that aren't like really thick gauge wire hooks. Because the rod is more bendy, you don't have as much backbone. So you want to find a hook that's not like super thick. So yeah, super bendy rod, you don't have as much backbone. If you have a skinnier hook, you'll have a better chance at not missing the fish when you go to set the hook. The weights I would use for medium heavy, the heaviest I would go is 1/4 ounce or 3/8 ounce. I have thrown 1/2 ounce jigs. I don't know if you've seen in my previous videos from years ago. All I had was a medium heavy and I was throwing 1/2 ounce jigs. I would miss so many fish if I didn't really like reel up all the slack and just hammer them. So definitely don't recommend throwing 1/2 ounce jigs for medium heavies, but you can throw 1/4 ounce or 3/8 ounce if that's really what you got to do. Black and blue for muddy water, and then green pumpkin for clear water. Just keep it simple with that. Next thing, Texas rigs. Texas rigs with, again, a skinnier wire hook. You can use those on a medium heavy. Texas rig is basically just, you get your little bullet weight, you put it on the line, and then you tie to your worm hook, whatever type of hook you got, EWG or the regular worm size hook. and then you can just pick out any soft plastic that you want to use. Right here is a Rage Craw. But yeah, I feel like you can successfully set the hook using a medium heavy. Um, as long as the hook is not too thick of a wire, you should be fine. Soft plastics that I would use, crawl style or Senkos are always good. Another bait you could use as Texas rig are the beavers, the beaver style baits or creature baits. Those also work really well, and that's what I'll personally use. Again, black and blue for muddy water, and then for clear water, just green. And yeah, just try and keep it simple. But yeah, these are all the types of baits that I personally throw on this medium heavy rod. So that concludes today's episode number 2, everything about what I'm throwing on my medium heavy rod. If you guys have any video suggestions for future videos, just leave it in the comments below and I'll get back to you. Hope you guys learned something today, and thanks for watching.